Nice. All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Madelyn,
Hello. Hello.
KJ7NUW.
And I'm Amy, KB9IQX.
We are going to commandeer this educational meeting to talk about MeshCore. And this is meant to be an introduction to MeshCore. So I'm sure that there's many of you on here who have played around with it and have some experience with it. And I would just say that what we want to do for the recording and for those of you in the room that maybe don't have a lot of experience with mesh technology or with MeshCore or meshtastic, that this gives you a good foundation and a good understanding of it. So what we're going to, well, first off, I just want to give a little bit of an intro. There's a good chance that if you're in this meeting today, that you've been hearing about all the buzz. There's been a discussion of MeshCore that's kind of blown up on the PSRG repeater lately. And we hear it mentioned multiple times per week. Usually with like some questions or some, people interested in getting into it. And the chatter on the repeater isn't even the coolest part, in my view. What's really fascinating here in the Pacific Northwest is that we're seeing an explosion of this. And it's not just in the ham community. There is a large groundswell of interest among non-hams, among people that are in the maker community, 3D printers, people that are hikers and techies, and a lot of these people are just brand new to the concept of radio.
So, a couple of weeks ago, I saw a ham YouTuber talking about the differences between meshtastic and MeshCore. It was over in Tennessee, and he was trying to figure out what's the big deal? Why MeshCore? Why is everybody talking about it? So he actually went and talked to MeshCore users. And he found that the three largest meshes in North America, as you can see on the map, are in the Boston area, are in Southern California, and in the Pacific Northwest. Next. And by far the largest mesh is in the Pacific Northwest. So yay us. As a result of that, we have actually a fairly reliable, we'll get into it later in some of the details, but we have a fairly reliable backbone between Vancouver, BC and Seattle. We can get messages back and forth between the two relatively easily. And the whole is towards the south. We're slowly working our way south of Tacoma towards Olympia. I think with the goal of reaching Portland, which also has mesh there. So we're trying to bridge all of Cascadia. And the reason that this is so successful in the Pacific Northwest, as I think you mentioned, Madelyn, is that there's a lot of enthusiasm. There's a lot of enthusiastic builders installing repeaters, both official as well as some more informal installations. A lot of people like to scout potential sites where to put up repeaters. So there's a lot of builders, there's hams, there's non-hams who are very interested in this. And there's actually just people who want to talk on the mesh, which I found really refreshing. Aside from the tech aspect of this, it's kind of like ham radio. It's like, yay, I got this radio. Is there anybody I want to talk to? And I found that on the mesh, there's channels, which we will get into, and people are really enthusiastic about this. There's also some Discord servers, Puget Mesh, Cascadia Mesh, probably others, with people talking general talk, hardware, technical advice, firmware, installations. There's a lot of chatter about it. So there's a lot of support. There's a lot of community about this.
Awesome. All right. So our goal today, as I mentioned, is really to provide an introductory to MeshCore and mesh technology. We want to show you why it's capturing the attention of so many geeky people in and out of ham radio, how the Pacific Northwest has truly become one of the major epicenters of MeshCore activity in the world. And we're going to look at some pretty incredible things made possible by this LoRa technology, long range technology. So this is everything that we're going to be covering today. We've reserved some time at the end for Q&A and discussion, and we're looking forward to that. And so with that, let's get into the content. So if we had to boil it down into a single, simple concept, I think we would say that MeshCore is like the rebirth of two-way paging. But unlike in the 90s, where we had to rely on commercial carriers and a strictly defined piece of plastic from just a handful of manufacturers, the ecosystem today is greatly expanded. The most common setup is actually really simple. You just build or purchase a pager-like device, or you can pair a LoRa radio to your smartphone over Bluetooth, and your phone becomes the keyboard and the screen. The LoRa device is like your modem or radio. But that's not the only way to do it. The maker community has just gone crazy with this, and people have designed smartphone devices that look and they look and feel like Blackberries, or they look and feel like pagers. Some of them have built-in keyboards and screens. So there is a way that you can hop on the mesh with a fully autonomous Blackberry-like device. So what you see here is just a kind of smattering. We're going to get a little bit more into hardware later in the presentation, but just wanted to sort of set that idea in your minds. And what makes this distinct from the old days of paging or even modern mobile texting is ownership. MeshCore is community run. It is community developed and maintained. There is no centralized service or server, no subscription fees, and all of the hardware, software, infrastructure, the rollout, everything is community driven. And because of this, because it is organic and decentralized, if one repeater node goes down, there's others that fill in. It supports bidirectional peer-to-peer encrypted messaging. And this is what is really interesting for any of us that are interested in privacy, because it bridges the gap between secure messaging apps that we use on the internet and the RF hardware that we use as hams. We'll get more into this in a moment. So I guess we're in a section where I'm going to do a lot of talking, but I promise Amy's going to do a lot of talking in a minute when we get into the deep dive into the app. Okay, so where are we? We are in the 33 centimeter band. This is the ISM band. So that means there's no license required to operate here, which means that we are sharing the space with non-hams as well. Because we're in the ISM band, there's limits on power here. We're sharing the band with medical devices and all kinds of consumer devices here. So everybody's limited to 1 watt maximum transmit. And now I normally wouldn't get out of bed for less than 100 watts on my Yaesu VX5, but I'll just say that I've been very impressed at the extremely low power required to make contacts on LoRa technology. LoRa is a spread spectrum digital mode. Specifically, it's chirp spread spectrum. And this basically is a spread spectrum technology like we're familiar with in ham already, that allows us to pull signals out of the mud, essentially, decoding messages that are well below the noise floor. And so because of this, you really don't need power in order to get a good signal and make contact. So the trade-off to being in the ISM band, or one of the great things, is that we get encryption. So because we're on an ISM band, we can use AES 256. And that's what gives us both group messaging that's non-secure as well as private comms. Okay, so before we get into the specifics of the hardware that makes all of this powered and possible, and before we take you into a little bit of a demo of the application, let's talk about the mesh part of MeshCore. And let's look at some of the basics of what mesh networking is, fundamentally how MeshCore is different from, and in some ways it's an evolution of meshtastic, which is something you may have heard about as well. And so let's just get into that. Okay, so to understand MeshCore, we need to look at two broad philosophies of mesh networking. And as hams, actually, we have perfect analogies for both of these. So philosophy A is a bit like an ad hoc mesh network model. And the analogy I want to use here is if you think about the simplex net that we run, or the old packet radio days as well. If Dan KB7RYY is running the simplex net as net control in the hills above Redmond, and let's just say a station out in Port Townsend maybe wants to check in, but Dan can't hear them, a third station in Everett or Bainbridge might step in and relay the message to Dan, right? So simplex nets are decentralized and they're organic. The relay station is basically creating a temporary mesh network to relay that station in. But these decentralized relays in simplex net, they come at the cost of possible congestion. So if multiple stations hear that Port Townsend station and attempt to relay at the same time, we've all experienced this, there's a lot of doubling and RF congestion that can happen. And that slows down the net. So philosophy B is the infrastructure model of mesh networking. And if we think about this in a ham analogy, it's kind of like the link repeater system, or like our own PSRG repeater system, where we've got multiple receivers on high ground acting as a backbone. And so as users of the system, we really don't have to think about how our signal gets in there, or how it gets into the infrastructure, or which receiver we're attached to. All of that routing happens behind the scenes. And this networked infrastructure is basically a mesh configuration. It requires more upfront investment in infrastructure, but the advantage of it is you get much better long distance coverage and much more efficient routing of messaging. All right. Amy, was this your slide or mine?
This was a transition.
Okay, all right. So we're getting to the transition where Amy's going to take us into the weeds a little bit more. But so this brings us to meshtastic. And many of us have experimented and played around with meshtastic. So meshtastic is built on more of an ad hoc model. And you'll see that MeshCore is built on more of an infrastructure model. We're oversimplifying a little bit here because meshtastic isn't 100% ad hoc, but I think that this is a good way to think about the key differences. By default, meshtastic allows for every node to be eligible to be a relay of any traffic that it sees. And so it attempts to manage that congestion by using an algorithm to not make every single node retransmit and relay every message. In real world scenario, though, when you get into a really congested area like the Puget Sound, and through our own experiments, we found that there was a lot of network congestion and a lot of collisions on the network using meshtastic. And that meant that we had less reliability in getting things through. There's just too many nodes that are trying to be helpful at the same time. And noise floor goes up, packets start colliding, and essentially you end up in a situation where there's just a ton of doubling. I think that what's important to point out is it's not that meshtastic is bad. It shines in an off-grid or more sparse distribution, just like a simplex net would.
Or like at the Mike and Key swap meet.
Yeah, exactly.
Where there was like 30 to 50 feral hams on meshtastic, and messages were going through back and forth. I saw a lot of messages. Did not have a lot of failures. And in that kind of decentralized ad hoc environment, meshtastic really shined.
Yeah.
Where it didn't is the example that we'll get to.
Yeah. All right. So Amy, over to you.
So the problem that we ran into, I will just call the Beacon Hill problem. And I live on Beacon Hill, so I'm not advocating for any nefarious activity. But unlike the Mike and Key swap meet and that ad hoc situation, what Madeline and I were trying to do was trying to bridge the distance between my house, which is on the left in this image, and her house, which is on the right in this image, sort of a more static locations, obviously. And as you can see from the topographical profile, there was a lot of earth in the way, so we had absolutely no line of sight. So we had to put up a relay somewhere, a repeater, which the circle down towards the bottom, we identified a P patch there. And we started testing with meshtastic. And we had, I'd say, sporadic success, right? There were periods of time where it was great for 30 minutes to an hour at a time. And then suddenly things just went bad. We got no messages through. I'd estimate, being very generous, we had about a 10% throughput success rate getting our messages through on meshtastic. And we kind of started thinking that one of the reasons it was that we had no control over the routing. We were just kind of shooting messages out of our personal nodes out into the ether, and who knows, they probably were going through the repeater we set up in between us at the ridge of the hill at the P patch, but we could never tell. We didn't know. For all we know, my signal was just shooting down into Soto and washing off into the sea, never to be heard from again. So there was just no way that we could tell. There was no way that we could verify that our messages were going through the repeater that we installed. So enter MeshCore. And I guess I also want to give a shout out to Bill WFB, who mentioned this thing called MeshCore. And we were like, well, okay, maybe. Because I know I was actually, there was a period of a couple of months where I was like, I may just be done with this mesh stuff. It's just not working. So thank you, Bill, if you're there. And then thanks, Madelyn, because you were like, Amy, flash your firmware with MeshCore and let's test this out. So after a while, I finally listened and I did it. And we migrated over to MeshCore. And the first thing we noticed is that we actually had data on how our messages were being routed. And more importantly, we could actually specify which repeaters to go to. So we could specify that our message goes through that P-patch repeater that we installed. And the difference literally was night and day. We went from like 10% throughput to, I actually down adjusted this 85%. I feel like initially it was more like 90 to 95%. And it just, I was just excited about mesh again. So we've gone to MeshCore and actually never looked back. And now we've become part of this huge community of MeshCore. Next slide.
All right. So let's talk about MeshCore's infrastructure approach to mesh networking. And the main idea here is that it's very opinionated in how it routes traffic. And it separates the roles of clients from repeaters. So instead of every radio trying to repeat everything, MeshCore really relies on a tiered system. So we have these super nodes or super repeaters that are located high on mountaintops. And these are like towers and advantaged locations just like we would look for a ham repeater. Then the other type of repeater is fill-in repeaters, where it could be something like the beacon P patch, for example, or a node that's even just running in a neighborhood. Jack, I think, has one running in his window there, servicing his neighborhood. The other major type of role is client, and that's just your end user device like this, or there's many other types of devices for end users like pagers and home nodes. And oh, my home assistant's responding. And those obviously talk to the fill-in repeaters. The fill-in repeaters can route things very long distances across mountaintops to to get you up to Vancouver, for example. Okay, so so by organizing the traffic and separating things out between the client chatter and infrastructure and routing, core backbone routing, it greatly frees up the airwaves, and it prevents the types of collisions that we were seeing previously that prevented us from reliably getting messages through. Okay. So MeshCore relies on deterministic routing, and this is another big differentiator between MeshCore and meshtastic. So in meshtastic, in a flood network, every message goes everywhere, and any node has the chance to relay that message. But in MeshCore, we've got a lot more control over routing through a deterministic path. And so when I send a message to Amy, the network identifies the specific chain of repeaters that are needed in order to get from point A to point B. Then it remembers that, and it uses that path for every future direct message that I send her. Now, it does this by first sending a flood message out. Then it listens for where the response comes from, and it analyzes the metadata of all the repeaters that got the message back to me so that my node can set the path. What's really cool is that there's that automatic routing feature where the network and the app will figure out which repeaters to send the message through. But it's pretty cool that you can also do your own research and figure out what paths you want the message to take between two locations once you get familiar with the mesh and familiar with some of the tools, which Amy's actually going to give us a view on. There are 3 different flexible messaging modes that MeshCore can use. One is the example of private one-to-one message like I was just talking about. The next one is you can actually create a private encrypted group where you pre-share an encryption key for a channel, and you name your group, and then you share that among a dedicated group of people, and it's end-to-end encrypted throughout just that group that's in that channel. And then the last one is there are public unencrypted channels like #Seattle or #PSRG. And those use flood routing so that everybody can get the message. There's also a few other different features in MeshCore that we're not going to go super deep into these, but there's an option to set up a room, and this is kind of like an old school BBS, where you can use your device to dial into a kind of server and through text navigate stored messaging and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of metadata and telemetry that you can get that Amy's going to take us into in a minute, where you can actually log into a repeater as a guest, and you can look at what that repeater sees, all of the routes that it sees, for example. And all of the management of repeaters can actually happen over the mesh itself, which is really cool. Okay, Amy, over to you about war driving.
Okay. So strap in, buckle up, and pretend it's 1999 again, which Agent Smith and the Matrix tells us is the pinnacle of our human civilization. So just like war driving to discover Wi-Fi signals, we can do this via app. There's I think it's browser-based
Yep.
MeshCore war driving app that pairs with your device, and you can see on the left image there, that was me in my work automobile, and I have repurposed an old sports Walkman. There's a MeshCore node hidden in there with a battery, and you can see the little antenna. And I just pair that up with my phone, and it's a true Ronco device. Set it and forget it. It just auto pings and records what it hears as you drive. You don't even have to think about it. So what that allows is for what we see at the right, on the right, it allows for a map, to construct a map of signals. So the green is where the node has heard signals, strong signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the yellow is it's heard things, but kind of weaker signals. The red is it's heard nothing in that square. And then you can see it kind of a little bit towards the bottom right. White squares just have not been mapped. So you can find yourself some squares that haven't been mapped, and go drive around, help the network. What it does is it helps identify coverage holes and where there's no coverage. There's a lot of neighborhoods I found in Seattle that I have trouble getting signals to. So this map actually helps others who are interested in building repeaters to figure out where to place fill-in repeaters. So that's one of the many fun things you can do with MeshCore. It's like ham radio. It's a hobby of a lot of hobbies. Next. Which leads us to installing repeaters in places. You can see in this image, are we going to disclose the locations, or are we going to keep it secret?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get in trouble.
So anyway, the image on the right is the P patch. That's the relay station between our two houses, and it's been functioning pretty well. We keep tweaking it. As you can see, Madelyn is being very official there with fall protection and headwear protection. So yeah, this is one thing you can do. Put up infrastructure. It's overall fairly cheap. I think we have a slide of some of the repeater that you put up.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun. You can scout locations based on either the War Driving app or just by walking or driving around and seeing if you can get signals out. And if you can't, look for places that are local high spots to put up infrastructure and help the community.
Yeah, I'll just say that this is really fun to be able to look at that map and know where there is a neighborhood or an area that that doesn't have a signal, and then you put in a very small, relatively small solar node, and this is kind of one of the examples of ones that we built. We put a decent antenna on here, and it's solar and it's small, and it's just really fun to see that square go green, I'll just say.
Yeah, and I think that's a big point, that is a solar node.
Yeah.
And a lot of these repeaters that people are putting up are solar because they're, in a place they might be able to get to only every so often. And I will say that when we started out with meshtastic, we were going back, every 3-4 days to change out the battery and charge it. But then we just looked into some hardware that was solar powered, and it's been functioning great.
Yeah, it really has. All right.
So yeah, another fun thing you could do is DXing, kind of like the simplex net, like VHF, UHF simplex. Send out messages. There's a public channel that's kind of a default channel. In the firmware, you can send out messages and say, I've done this. I said, good morning from Beacon Hill, Seattle. And I've had people respond to me, good morning from Vancouver. And that just floored me that we were able to get reliably between Vancouver, BC, and Seattle. So the screenshot at the right is from the app, from the public channel that I actually just took this morning. I opened up the app, kind of flipped through it, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of Canadian call signs. So that's really, I think we could never do that on meshtastic.
Right.
But because of this infrastructure that's in place, we can regularly communicate throughout the Puget Sound Salish Sea region. The other thing I do is, because I'm blessed with a job where I drive around all corners of the city, I call it local DX, which maybe isn't DX, but I have my node in the car, and I basically spam Madelyn with messages, and she at lunchtime she opens up her phone and she's like, see messages from like with my location, like I'll be like 3rd and Madison, Greenwood and 110th.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I can't get to you because you're moving. Or a lot of times, like, the message gets through. So that's really interesting and fun because, on the one hand, I'm mobile out in the field and I'm using it to talk to her fixed station. So that gives me data actually as I'm out and about to see, okay, well, if I'm in this neighborhood, I can't get a message to her. In these neighborhoods, I can reliably get very fast acknowledgement that I have sent a message to her. And you could speak more to this, whether it's a frustration or a fascination. She tries to respond back to me as sometimes a moving target.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be, admittedly, it can be a little bit of a challenge if somebody is moving and the network route is changing pretty rapidly. It is hard because most of the repeaters that are fill-in repeaters, they don't cover a huge distance. So it can be hard to like figure out where she's at and get a message to her. But the nice thing is you can always just switch over to one of the flood channels and one of the group channels and make contact that way. So Amy's able to reach me easier because my location during the day when I'm working from home is fixed. And so sometimes I just respond back on a public channel and just use flood messaging to get a response back to her.
And I think I'll touch on that more in the app overview, how to use direct messages versus using channels to kind of help you figure out what repeaters are hearing you and what your best route is. And then when you're out and about, we'll also cover this later in the app. The MeshCore app has a built-in map that shows known node locations, because you can set a location on your node, either a fixed location, or if your radio board has GPS, you can actually advertise that manually to the mesh. So that kind of helps you figure out, as you're out and about, where who you can hear, how you can go. Before we go, I will just say, I think tactically speaking, I think we've talked about this and we've decided that, if I was out in the field texting Madelyn, and we needed to have a very important conversation over the mesh, the understanding would be that I would find a good location that has a good connection to her and just stop there for the duration of our very important conversation and text exchange.
Yeah.
So that there's a little bit of, social engineering and learning there as well. So, but again, these things are really fun to learn and experiment with.
Yeah.
So I think.
All right. So we're going to just talk about hardware for a couple of minutes here, because this is also a lot of fun. On the left, you have a printed case that has a Heltec version 3. And this is like, you can find these Heltec V3 boards on Amazon for like $20, $25. You know, they go on sale and they're like $20. On the right, you see the Rainier Vista Ridge repeater, which I convinced one of my neighbors who has a rooftop deck block away from me to put this up on his and so his roof. He's got a little solar panel there in the background, and he's got some weather monitoring equipment there that he uses. So that's the repeater for my particular neighborhood. And I need to talk to him about figuring out how we remove that, or how we slide the thing up so the pole isn't in the way. I've got a little bit of a directional thing going on there. But there's other types of equipment as well. And Amy, I don't know if you want to talk about some of these.
Yeah, well, first of all, on the previous slide, on the left is, so we separately went to a Seattle Torrent PWHL game, and we both took our nodes, and we were on the opposite sides. We were both at center ice, actually. I was just on one side of Climate Pledge, and she was on the other side, and we were just talking back and forth on the mesh, just directly. You know, it was what, 100, it was about 100 meters, but it was fun because we were directly communicating, you know, much like Simplex. So yeah, and I had no problem. You know, when or if asked, it's a pager, which technically is not a lie. So, and some of these, yeah, so there's a lot. So MeshCore supports a lot of hardware. And yeah, some of it, like you see at the bottom right, is like a full-fledged BlackBerry-like device. You know, there's bare boards. You can see at the top there, is that the P-patch repeater?
That's this thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the repeater we installed at the ridge of Beacon Hill on the P-patch. We put a little bracket on there for a better antenna. And we did a very professional weatherproofing job on it, and it worked.
It's working.
We checked it the other night, and there was absolutely no water in it.
Yeah.
So whereas before, I think our previous node, the antenna connector, is where some moisture was getting in. So again, building nodes, that's another fun part of the process, right? And learning. And I think some of you who have been to the Mike and Key, when they saw my meshtastic node, the yellow Walkman, it's just a quick and dirty little board. It's that Heltec board that's in there with a 3,000 milliampere hour battery that lasts probably the better part of 2 days. And it even fits a spare antenna in there. So you can go wild buying pre-made stuff, making your own stuff. You know, your imagination is kind of the limit. It's pretty endless. So now the app demo. So MeshCore is best experienced through your phone. It's at once like a really simple app, but then it has all these complex features. And I think actually the user experience and the design of the app is fantastic. It's available on all the app stores. And more importantly, there's actual app parity between the Android and iOS versions, which was kind of a sticking point with Meshtastic. There were different features and user experiences depending on which platform you were on. But MeshCore, I've used it on both, and I was like, oh, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. So it works over Bluetooth. And the cool thing too is that it has a very reliable auto reconnect, by which I mean, you know, I had so for the war driving, I had my node in the car and I just left it there. And then I would get out of the car to do something. The phone would lose Bluetooth connection with the node. I get a little notification on my phone that said, oh, hey, we've lost connection with the node. I got back in the car, just connected right back up. Just do not even need to worry about it. Again, very Ronco-like, set it and forget it. So this is the app. And these are the three basic screens, from left to right: contacts, channels, and the map. And that's it for the top level. And this is where you'll spend most of your time. So with the contacts, you can filter by favorites, you can filter for user nodes, you can filter for repeater nodes or room servers, or just everything, all your contacts and connections. And this is also where if you tap on one of these, so if I tap on Mad Mobile, NUW, that's where I can send Madelyn a direct message. And it's just a standard, text interface. The middle screen shows all the channels that you're subscribed to. The important one is the public channel. That's kind of the default that comes with the firmware. Anybody with a node can post to it, and that's for example the channel that I showed earlier where I was reading messages from people up in Vancouver. There's also private channels, which I don't see any private.
You have a testing channel.
Yeah, the test that Wade, W7ITL, and I, we try to test messages between each other from Seattle to Tacoma. So those are private channels. They require a private key, a private key for all the users. Then there are open hashtag channels, which you can just create one, you can just join one, and you can communicate that way. And on the right, we just have a map of your known contacts and nodes. So that helps you when you're out and about and you can be like, well, what repeater do I need to go through if you want to be more proactive and specify paths to talk to people. So communicate, that's the whole point of this. Again, you can send private messages node to node. The thing to remember about that is that you have to exchange your public keys. So if I see if Madelyn comes up as a contact and I don't have her public key, we can't send direct messages to one another until we exchange keys. And that can be done via, I can send her the QR code like you see on the image there. There's also a link that can be generated, so I can use another, like Telegram or SMS or Signal or whatever, send her the link, and then she can copy it into her MeshCore app. And then after that, we can talk encrypted, and both private messages and private channel messages can go through repeaters. The repeaters don't care. They'll just pass the encrypted message through just fine. So privacy is maintained. It's basically like a encrypted tunnel through the repeater, more or less. There's also, I mentioned the different kinds of channels. So one sort of practical piece of advice is that when I'm sending private messages to Madelyn, I just get either an acknowledgement that it's been delivered or a message that says failed, which doesn't necessarily mean that the message failed to be delivered. I just did not receive the confirmation, the ACK from her node.
Yeah.
But we have had so many times where we've actually gotten messages back and forth, but on one of our apps it just said failed.
Yeah.
And in both the channels and the direct messages, you'll see a little status message. It'll say sending, try 1 of 3 or try 1 of 5. And we talked about the routing earlier. If you have a route, if I have a defined route of repeaters set up between myself and Madelyn, it will try, I think, up to 3 times to send via that route. And if that fails, then it switches over to a flood. It just floods the network with the message for five attempts to try to get that message through. And I believe it's an option where if it gets that route, it can automatically remember that route to try to send the next message via that route. Now, if you're talking to somebody via a channel like that, like Wade and myself, we have a channel set up. You can kind of see, for example, the other two images, it will show you how many repeats and repeaters your message was heard on, which is a valuable tool for figuring out how to reach somebody. So I was actually floored on this one message. I was up on the 37th floor of a building downtown Seattle, and I sent out a message to this channel, and I was like, oh my gosh, 7 repeats. Wow. What are these 7 repeaters that have heard the message? So I would just long press on that message that said heard 7 repeats. And then I get the screen on the right, and it said, these are the repeaters. Some that are in my contact list that have a name, some that it doesn't know yet. So that's a really good tool in trying to figure out like kind of what you can hear, who can hear you, and all of that. So that's a good use case for maybe using a channel to communicate with somebody versus a direct message. And last thing I want to mention is there are bot channels. So there's a channel called #bot, and you can send commands to it. Like you can just send a ping to it. And if it hears you, it responds with Pong. You could send something like you can just send it the message path, and it will trace the path of repeaters that your message took to get to that repeater. I believe the #bot channel is somewhere up in Everett. And then it'll send a message back to you with that list. So again, that kind of helps you map the network, map what you can hear, and help you figure out how best to route messages. There's kind of more advanced there's extra tools in the app that I think are really cool. One thing that MeshCore allows you to do is it allows you to set up a guest login to any repeater that you put up. So you could set up a guest login and an admin login with a password. And with an admin login, obviously you can do some repeater administration remotely. But with a guest login, you can just log into this repeater, and for example, you could see what's called a neighbor list, and it will show you all of the other repeaters that this repeater that you log into can talk to directly. So 0 hops, direct connection. So for example, on the left, the repeater that I put up at Providence Point in Issaquah has a direct connection to Puget Mesh Haystack, which is an amazing repeater that has a very wide footprint. So that lets me know that if I'm somewhere in Issaquah and I can reach that IQX Providence Point repeater, chances are that I can talk to somebody, maybe let's say in Monroe, who can directly see, or indirectly through other repeaters, see that Puget Mesh Haystack repeater. So this is a cool little tool to check, how far you can talk to through that repeater. It also helps you find contacts. You know that if you can, on the right, for example, that if you can reliably hit the First Hill Skyline repeater, you might want to check out these other repeaters to try to route some of your messages through.
Yeah, that one's incredible. It's pretty. It's up on a rooftop of one of the taller buildings in downtown, and it sees 50 fill-in repeaters as well as some of the big ones. So that's an example of a really powerful local repeater that just is routing a ton of traffic. And what's cool is that the person who set this up, Jade is her name, she allows guest logins, so you can see all the metadata of the repeater, which is really cool.
So there's all kinds of other in-app tools that I think are really cool, not just for MeshCore. Like this line of sight and antenna coverage tool, I think are pretty useful for just ham radio use. So let me work backwards. That antenna coverage tool screenshot was, I took that 2 weeks ago when I was in Chicago, and I set up a MeshCore repeater outside the second story window of my mom's house. I'm sad to say Chicago is very slow in MeshCore adoption. I think they're still trying to make MeshCore or meshtastic work as well as it can for them. But I decided to leave a repeater there just, under the theory of if you build it, they will come. And it was cheap, $25 board and a $9 antenna just sitting in the window. That's cheap hardware. And if it can provide a service to the community, then theoretically, that red is the coverage that my antenna in my mom's house in Chicago could see. So I can only hope that when I come back next time, I'll see some more nodes and I'll log into that repeater, check the neighbors list, and it'll actually have some neighbors that it can hear directly. And then the other, we've all used Hey, What's That to kind of map elevation profiles for line of sight, but this is an app that's on your phone. You don't even have to go, out to the internet. And I think it's a really cool little interface. You just long press on the 2 points you want. It gives you an elevation profile. And this one is when Madelyn and I were trying to scouting a location for a repeater that we wanted to put up in Southwest Seattle. So it's a very helpful tool. Mm-hmm. And do you want to talk about some of you've used the route tracing and others?
Yeah, so another one is route tracing, where you can actually have the app. You can basically try to ping different routes through the map, using different repeater paths, and see what makes it, see when you get a ping back. There is an RX log where you can see whatever your node is seeing in real time. And there's a discovery as well. So anyway, these are things that are worth playing with when you get into the app. And there's just some super valuable tools there that are worth taking a look at. All right, well, we've reached the end. And we've got some options here for you in terms of how to get started. So Amy, you want to take us through this one quickly?
Oh yeah, sure. First, there are so many options. $20, $25 will get you up on MeshCore. Mm-hmm. There is, and it's simple. There's a web-based firmware flasher. You just go to this website and hook up your node via USB-C or whatever USB, and find what hardware you have. Bing, bang, bish, bosh. There's a little setup you can go through while you're connected that can set up your node name and your static location if you want to include that. And that's pretty much it. Then, of course, download the MeshCore app for your phone or tablet. If you want to do war driving, we've included the URL for the war driving app. Yeah, it's a hobby of many hobbies. A lot of people just like to build companion nodes and hand them out to people. A lot of people like to build repeaters and find places to install them. Some people like to war drive and identify dead spots. Wade, I don't know if Wade is on this call, but Wade built a bot just like the one up in Everett, but he built one that's down in Tacoma. So, you can test your propagation characteristics down to Tacoma. And then just talk. I've actually found that the public channel and, people can set up channels for their own special interests, whatever, which I think is a great strength. You just find like-minded people or interesting people, or maybe not unlike-minded people, and you want to bridge the social gap. Go for it. just get out there and start communicating. I think, is that it?
Yeah. So y'all, we've had a blast exploring MeshCore, and we hope that you'll check it out because there's tons of areas of Seattle still that need coverage, and tons of areas around the Pacific Northwest and the Puget Sound that need fill in. And for anybody who's not here, just adding a repeater to your neighborhood or your local area is super powerful, because as soon as other repeaters come on in that area, you start to build a backbone. So we just encourage people to give it a shot. It's a really cheap thing to get started in, and sincerely, it's a lot of fun. So with that, I think we'll switch over to Q&A, and I think we'll hang around as long as people want.
Amy, this is Bill Barron speaking. Amy and Madelyn, first, I want to say you did a superb job. This was a really valuable education committee meeting. Really well done. My congratulations. I have a question and a comment. Actually, let me give the comment first. One other rabbit hole you can fall into in this with this is playing with solar, which is a lot of fun. And then I got into the whole sensor, putting sensors on these things. You can put environmental sensors and current and voltage sensors, and that's been a lot of fun for me. Here's my question, though. You talked about direct messages and public messages, and then that middle category of, let me say that again, direct messages, public channels, and then in between are the private channels. And then off to the side, there's also telemetry. So there's sort of four boxes. My experience is the public channels work unbelievably well, very robust. I assume the private channels work, since they're the same technology, I think they work the same way, but that's really a question. I've had rather poor experiences with direct messages and with telemetry. They're not anywhere near as robust. Can you explain why that is?
That's a great question.
My first response, Bill, is there's a little additional complication to direct messaging in that you must exchange public keys with anybody that you want to message first. And so there's just the baseline to even establish to where a message is allowed to go through is higher. I struggled in the beginning, Bill, because I was trying to message you, and I figured that I didn't have your right, public key. And so I was getting a lot of failures in that. But yeah, if the mesh goes down, it has to find a new route. And that can be a little more tricky. But like you say, using one of the flood routed methods seems to be more reliable.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like our HTs. It's radio, right? Mm-hmm. Radio has some challenges. We like to say that, when everything else goes down, ham radio works. We might be down in a valley and our signal might not be getting out. So, the same thing with mesh. And then, we're essentially ultra QRP, right? We're way less than a watt. I mean, a watt is like some of these repeaters that people have put up, but this is 22 dBm is the max on a lot of these boards. So it's very low power. So, and I myself have noticed from driving and trying to send messages, just like with an HT, I try to send a message, it says it fails. I move 5 feet over, bam, it goes through. So, there's a little bit of bleeding edge there. Sometimes you get cut.
All right, Tyler.
Hello, and thanks for doing this presentation. Surprisingly, I have heard of meshtastic and MeshCore before even ham radio. But I have been avoiding going down that rabbit hole until I learned a little bit more about ham radio. So this is perfect timing for me. I did have a question about you were talking about the interference that happens with MeshCore. So with the traffic and the noise going on, they kind of clash and stuff. Does that actually mess up and interfere with MeshCore itself as well?
Yeah, I think what you're meaning, and I just want to clarify, I think you're speaking to like where meshtastic experiences more collisions, MeshCore is less. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, and I thought maybe you were saying that because there's a lot of like RF noise going on, things get kind of clashed. Does that work on the same like frequency as MeshCore? And so does the more traffic with Meshtastic actually cause problems with MeshCore?
That's a great question. And what I found, I don't know why, but they do share the same band, but I think as Juan is saying, there's a different frequency there. So I don't experience the same types of network congestion and collisions that we did when we were playing around with Meshtastic. So I think, yeah, multiple people in chat are saying they're different frequencies. So that makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
And I think that we use different bandwidth as well for MeshCore. So they seem to not conflict with each other. And it's just been a lot more reliable in comparison.
And I think the other thing was that with Meshtastic, it's almost, again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm trashing Meshtastic, but I think one of the things was that it's been kind of a victim of its own complexity. Like there were like 7 different roles that a node could have, from like repeater to router to client to client mute. And the message boards were like, how do I know which thing to choose? Whereas MeshCore is like, you get 3 choices, and 2 of them are really the big ones. You're either a companion node, which is a user, or you're a repeater. Done. So, and then there was, long fast, which channel versus medium fast versus other things, which are kind of like different bandwidths and different characteristics of the signal. And yeah, I think that just confused a lot of people. And MeshCore is in that way, it's a little more simplified, and it's like, go. So that does it.
On
James.
that topic, I think the deterministic routing helps too, because you don't have every node just echoing out and creating
Oh,
that rippling effect of
absolutely. Apps
repeating messages.
251%. Thanks, Matt. James, you've been waiting patiently.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, don't burn.
Yeah, don't burn. Hey, so on the phone app, how do I manually plug in my latitude and longitude? What's the correct format?
I think it's just digital degrees, like 47.1000, comma, negative
Yeah.
122.12345.
Well, I tried that, but you have to put in a north and a west. And every app seems to want to do it differently. And if you don't do
Yeah,
it
I think the
right,
positive and negative take care of that. Let me just double check.
I always select my position on the.
Oh yeah, you
there's
can
a map
also
icon.
you can also do it on the map. Yeah,
That's what I always do.
yeah.
oh, okay.
You can,
All right.
yeah.
Well, we'll try that then. Sorry. Thank you so much for doing
No,
this.
no, every question is a good question.
All right. Thank you.
Dan, KB7RYY, over to you.
Yes, looks like mic is on. I wanted to try to share my screen of my SDR looking at 915 megahertz.
That'll be
I haven't
fun.
done this for a while. Here it is, I think. Screen 3. Share. What happened? Anything?
It's coming. There we go.
Okay. So anyway, every 300 kilohertz, there's very strong signals. This is 10 megahertz centered on 915 megahertz. Most of the stuff is on 300 kilohertz spacing. It's very strong. I've got an ICOM discone on the roof with 40 feet of not too fat a coax. It came with a discone though, so I think it's supposed to handle higher frequencies. But you can see, I can see a few things up here. I don't know how this compares with other locations, but and it fills this whole ham 33 centimeter business. If I start scrolling down, there's the edge of the band. Those signals fall off right there. Go the other way. Where's the other end? There's the other end. Well, there's some stuff up here, but down here you can see they also fall off.
Those are power
Might be some
meters.
other stuff going on in here. But anyway, that's what I wanted to show. Okay,
Cool.
stop. I'm back.
Nice.
Awesome.
That was fun.
Dave, those are power meters, and that was one of the intentional things that was done in the region at first to try to find something that had a little bit less noise and put us in between the power meters because they're everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like thanks, Juan. Yeah, nice to meet you, by the way. I actually saw your deck and it looked really cool. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. Yeah, ISM band, we're competing with a lot of noise, industrial controls, medical devices, who knows what. So yeah, we're adding to the noise, I guess, but so be it.
Any other questions or anybody have anything they want to share before we wrap up?
Well, I did take the lid off the Hyaltech plastic box to see the antenna and think about how I could take that out or put it something slightly separated. These frequencies, you can't go very far with that tiny coax though, and this tiny, tiny connector. I don't know if someone's got something there to.
Oh, it's what is it? The U.FL IPX.
Is that what it is? I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
I mean, I get why they use them. They're just not my favorite connectors, but I get why on these tiny boards they use them. Can you see this? This is an antenna
Where'd you go? There you are.
A nice little, I think 17 centimeter long antenna that Madelyn actually got a couple of days ago.
That looks useful.
Let's see, Muzi works. MUZIWORKS, 915 megahertz. It seems to be working pretty all right the last 2 or so days that I've had it. I just like to keep like when I go to Climate Pledge, I like to put the discrete little one on, right? But when I'm in the car, I could put this one on. Yeah, don't put a lot of coax in between because signal loss from a 22 dBm source signal, it'll kill you. John, JSM.
Hey, I had a question. I got I guess you'd call it a companion node from Jack a few days ago. And from my house, I can hear everybody, but nobody's hearing me. And I drove over to Bothell, went up on top of 228th on the big hill there, and got out, and Sean, EXM, heard me. So
Nice.
So I know it works. There's just not much out here where I'm at. So
yeah,
I see the haystack repeater
cool.
out there. Because I live right between Woodinville and Maltby and on kind of a hilltop. So I think
sounds like you need a repeater node in your backyard.
I'm thinking so, and I have a 50-foot roan to put it on.
Nice.
So I'm thinking that's probably where I'm going to go is
John, I'm your neighbor, and I've got plenty of repeaters to put on places. So if you got a tower and you don't have a repeater, I'll give you a repeater. But this whole area needs stuff, and I live in the area.
Oh,
okay. That's a fairly common scenario that a lot of people have experienced. And typically, if you can get like on your roof, on a tree, outside in general, get 10 feet up, anything, that'll help a lot.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, and you'll be helping the community. I've gotten messages on the public channel that said, hey, thanks for putting up your repeater. You're actually helping a friend of mine get messages through. And I was like, awesome, right? Like you're helping the community. Mike, KB8BMY.
Yeah, hi. Really good presentation. Really, really good. Question I had is when you mentioned war driving and that if you travel a lot, which I do around the area, I'm looking at the site you posted that shows a map here. But the question I have is, how would I interface that with my the app to the node? And what I could probably do rather than use a battery, I can probably plug that node in the truck, and I go anywhere from
sure.
almost the Canadian line to let's see, probably now down to Portland. So I'll cover a pretty wide area. But anyway, how would is there an app or how do I interface that?
Yeah, you just follow that link and it opens up the app. It's actually a browser-based app. It opens it up and then you might have to set some permissions for, for Bluetooth via your browser. But then it's all controlled in that browser window to pair with the node, and then you have to tell it to start pinging. I don't think it automatically starts pinging. So yeah, that's how you do it. And yeah, power it via your truck. You'll power your node for a year.
Yeah. Brooks.
Yeah, great presentation. So my question is around the channels. So do you have like a list of channels that people can start using? I know that I have a couple of them saved in mine. I've got the hashtag ham radio and hashtag PSRG. Are there any other ones that people are using that might be helpful?
Seattle is very active. PSRG is very active. I think you have that one, Brooks. I think I've seen you on there. One of the bots, though, if you go to the bot channel, one of the features of the bot is that it'll tell you what the top channels are at that point, what public traffic it's seen. So you can do that as well. But there is, the only other thing I think is you can watch the log for a bit on your node and just see what channels are active. But I'm not aware of any public, publication or anything like that shows what channels are active. And any of us can create a hashtag channel, so.
Yeah. W7AW, West Seattle Amateur Radio Club, they have a channel.
That's a private one.
It's a private one, so you'd have to get the key from them for that. But yeah, they do probably. Sky's the limit, but yeah, right now I'm not aware of any channels lists or anything. It's kind of it's kind of ad hoc in that way. People just create channels for what they want. Based on affinity groups, interests, whatever. But yeah, the ham radio channel I think is a good channel. PSRG obviously is the best channel.
And there's some suggestions coming up in chat. I haven't checked those out. Great. So, and Puget Mesh is a great organization, y'all. Definitely check out their website, and they've got a Discord, and it's very helpful. There's tons of different people with different experiences on there, and tons of resources. So really, really encourage that.
Also, yeah, so there's the hashtag bot, which is up in Everett. I think the one that Wade is setting up, he might not have finished it. It's called hashtag taco bot for, Tacoma bot. Tacos. Rebecca, I think you raised your, no? Okay. All right. I didn't see anything. John.
I had one other question about the node that I have. When Jack dropped it off to me, he said, you just plug it in and charge it. And then once it's charged, just set it in the window. I don't know if this is the way it's supposed to be or not, but I find that once it's unplugged from a source of charging, it drops and doesn't do anything. It won't connect to my phone Bluetooth wise or nothing.
Interesting.
It has to stay plugged in.
But does the, it might be worth, so John, I built that node, and it's possible that, I wonder if maybe the battery got disconnected or something like that. It may be worth opening up that thing and seeing, because the battery should charge. The battery should last about a day.
Okay.
So yeah, there's something to check inside.
The day I got it, I set it right beside my phone and just let it charge, and I was connecting to it Bluetooth fine, and it showed it was fully charged, and then I unplugged it and it completely dropped out and wouldn't connect.
Yeah, and Jack may have dropped that thing. He may have thrown it across the room. He might have driven really erratically or off road, so it might have rattled something.
Never know what Jack's done.
Yeah, you never know, Jack.
True that.
It's certainly not the build of the node. I'll just say that, John.
I'll take a look at it and see what I can figure out.
All right. Alec. Hi, Alec.
Unmute. There we go. The one question I had is, what is the best source to acquire the equipment? I've noticed like you can find some on Amazon, stuff like that, AliExpress as well. That seems to be the least expensive option. But what's the best place to go looking for these?
Madelyn.
You probably get so many suggestions.
I think I bought most of mine via Amazon, and it was just, how quickly do you want it? How much do you want to pay? I actually, honestly, I got this sweet little case off of Amazon. It looks 3D printed, but it was like, I don't know, $15. And there's a 3,000 ampere hour, 3,000 ampere hour battery in there, and a Heltec V3 board.
3,000 milliamperes.
What's that?
3,000 milliamperes.
Oh yes, not 3,000 amp hours. No, it would be a lot bigger.
3,000 mega amp hours.
Anyway, yeah, I bought all mine. I think I bought most of mine off of Amazon or maybe even Etsy. There's probably better sources.
Yeah,
Rockland.
I mean, Rockland, I've gotten a number of antennas off of Rockland. They're great. They're great for like a little bit higher end equipment. So yeah, lots of suggestions.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of knockoff fake alpha antennas, and like for example, the Musi Works little whip. There's the one of them is really good. The knockoff is pretty bad. And so in Amazon it's hit and miss. You get some real stuff and some fake stuff. Rockland is mostly good, but they're in Florida, so they take a while to get across.
Yeah.
I have a question for Juan. How come you don't have a rich bio in QRZ.com?
I don't know. I do a bunch of stuff. I just I have not updated
There's
the
just
QRZ.
nothing there.
There's nothing there. It's just
shack pics or something.
I don't really have one either.
Jeff. Yeah. Jeff, you're next. Hi, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't quite hear. I wanted a suggestion if you could once a month set up a Zoom call here on PSRG for this subject. I think there's a lot of knowledge that's being bandied about, and it'd be nice to have as a monthly event.
That's a good suggestion.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Also, we can possibly even loop Juan in. I know, Juan, you've put up a lot of repeaters and that. So
yeah, and for Fusion Mesh, we've been talking about trying to do some sort of set of meetups, but like it's a much smaller group than this. So
yeah.
How about a meetup on the repeater, the PSRG repeater, on some night or somewhere?
Yeah, we could do that too.
Yeah. Though not everybody in the mesh is a ham, and not everybody wants to be a ham. So, I respect what people want or do not want to do. But I know we had, and Matt, NOR, I know we, at one point we had like up at the Broadview Library, we were setting up the Wi-Fi net mesh hardware, something like that. Yeah, maybe like I don't know, MeshCore Elmer meetup or something with, maybe people who want to play with some nodes and have a Zoom component to that,
Remember live meetups?
Oh my goodness.
Before times?
Oh my good. The before times. Yep. Yeah.
We have an intro to radio class for Seattle Emergency Hubs coming up, and I'll definitely try to mention it and give a quick demo. But it's primarily for GMRS.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Dan, I think you're next.
Oh, yeah. Too bad we aren't going to have clear skies tonight. I'm going to share another screen.
Rebecca also had something.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see all that red?
Yes.
You see, this is ham clock. You see this up here? It says Aurora. That's full scale.
Oh wow!
The Aurora has hit. It's up over Europe right now.
It's cloudy tonight.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll get some pictures from somewhere.
Right.
that is all. Got to figure out how to unshare now.
Alec,
look at all that wonderful aurora that's wasted on Antarctica.
On us, anyway. Oh yeah. Well, I don't know why. They might have clear skies down there. They got a few people.
All 20 of them.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Rebecca,
they probably all got
had
recalled.
a question.
Rebecca, you have a question?
You'd like to know how to turn off mute.
I was just going to say something funny, and I'm not anymore.
Okay.
I'm just
Oh,
gonna
tell us.
I'm just gonna be very close and just say hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Alec, over to you.
Tangential question. You mentioned the Wi-Fi mesh. That was a thing I remember from years ago. Does that still exist? Or is that
Arden, Aredn. Matt, I think you know more about that than I do.
Well, it does exist. I know that. I have some hardware, but I'm not part of like an active mesh at the moment. I've used it a few times. We've done field exercises.
Okay, and I know though for a while W7AW, the West Seattle Amateur Radio Club, was talking a lot about it. I think they had a bunch of people in West Seattle that were doing it. And Alec, I don't know where you are in Tacoma, but if you're high enough up, you might have some line of sight into West Seattle.
Yeah, actually I have very good line of sight. I'm right next to Sasau 911, which they built where they built it for a reason. They don't need a tower for all their radios. I think this sounds
like you need to put up a MeshCore repeater.
It does sound like it, and maybe another repeater as well. But sounds like this is a different Wi-Fi mesh thing. So I'll have to look into that. There was another one I did in the past that you had to use old WRT 54G routers for.
That's Arden.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that could be Arden. Arden runs on a lot of different hardware, but it does require different firmware.
Yeah, I'll take a look into that.
I think mine are. I think I have a Ubiquity Bullet and another piece. I don't remember which it is, but yeah, they're older generally because they need to be around long enough for someone to create third-party firmware.
Anything that runs OpenWRT, so Microtech. PugetMesh.org, we've got information about that too, and there is a couple 2.4 gigahertz Arden that aren't used a bunch. There's some interesting. If anybody's interested in any of this, let me know. I've been trying to rekindle it with 900.
Yeah, and another thing that's sort of on the same path would be Halo, which we could probably look into as well.
There's an Arden with Halo. That's the 900 that I think that would actually work much more reliably than the 2.4. Similar to how MeshCore. The only problem will be is that we can't put on the same frequencies, because if not, this will kill one will kill the other.
Yeah, I think we can probably easily overpower. But that would be interesting.
I think this is one of the 2.4 ones that I happen to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never actually had a Word 54G, funny enough.
Yeah, I got it. It's one of the it's a hand me down. So, anyways.
Yeah, I'd be happy to put up a node.
Great. Any more questions? I guess we're approaching 3 o'clock.
Well, everybody, thank you for attending and for your curiosity. It was a lot of fun doing this, putting this all together, and hopefully you feel like you got a little bit more of a understanding of what it is, and hopefully we'll get connected on the mesh.
And we'll be talking about it on PSRG and
we
elsewhere.
all want to know what the double three fingers are that Rebecca has up. But hey, guys, you did a great job. You set some standards for presentation
it's
there.
33, Dan. 33.
33s. Oh, okay. I copied. I got it.
I want to know if Dan has a repeater yet.
I see you across the room of blood.
Yeah, I know. Dan's surrounded by trees. The trees don't hurt so much on VHF, but UHF and above, these trees give me problems.
I think we should try it anyway.
Yeah, it probably work.
I want to
come on up and we'll play around.
I want to put in a pitch in at the end. If anybody actually has
another thought. Brooks was here. Is Brooks still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Brooks, hey, Somerset Elementary. Don't some school kids need to learn about MeshCore? Your wife's with Newcastle schools, but she must have some connections. Somerset Elementary is a wonderful location for this stuff.
Oh, okay. She's in the Renton School District, so I guess I don't know.
Renton. Well, anyway, she probably has a few connections. The Bellevue Fire Department that I'm with or associated with as a volunteer, the school district's totally separate. I'd have to go knock on their door and convince them I was an upstanding citizen that could bring some interesting educational content to their school. And I don't know how that would work out.
Just show the kids your comm van and some brightly
Comm
colored.
van? I don't have one of those. I don't even have a car.
Just don't try to give away candy.
Well, that could attract a few. No, you don't want to do that. No, they'll think
No,
about things anyway. Even if I'm all on the up and up, that won't be a thing to do.
Juan was trying to say something.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. I was going to basically make a call out that, if anybody has property or houses or towers or anything that is good for RF, it's probably good for this. And we're happy to help or advise you, or even depending on how good the site is, like we've been funding and putting some stuff out there in different places, because I think the more that people have access to this, the more excited, the more likely this will stick around, because if not, people will just think this doesn't work and go to something else.
Right. Yeah. Like use it or lose it. Right.
Use it or lose it. Just what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If K3OE is still out there, is K3OE still
here?
Sweet. Rich, I was thinking they could put a repeater on top of your house.
Yes.
Can they come and toss a repeater on top of your house?
Yeah. Yeah, would be a pretty fair location.
All right. I'm grabbing
I
my
know
ladder,
you're not
Rich.
there right now.
I'm grabbing my well and going right over.
Could you spare a small room for a ham shack?
Well, just toss it on top of his house.
Unfortunately, Rich's house is probably about 10 feet above sea level, like the rest of the Tampa,
No, in
Florida
West
area.
Seattle. In West Seattle.
Rich's way
Oh.
up Bluff.
Not Tampa.
Not Tampa, no.
No, we
We
need
had
direction.
John raising his hand.
Yeah, I have a
1017,
question.
yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Will I know this is being recorded. Is the recording available somewhere?
It will be, yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, somebody will do that. I think,
Yeah. So the recording,
Send it to me. I'll post it on YouTube.
the recording will eventually be posted on the PSRG website. There's a link for educational meetings. Oh,
Okay.
and it looked like maybe Cami had her hand up too from the PSRG Zoom host.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Cami here. I was just gonna say what Brooks already said. Yeah, the recording will be posted on the PSRG website once we have a chance to get it all sorted and sent over to the person who does the posting.
As well as the presentation. The actual slides.
Yeah, and Cami, send me the video. I'll put it on our YouTube, and we have a playlist for educational meetings.
Will do.
I gotta go. Thank you so much. Great to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you all too. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're all gonna
Thanks
split
for
it.
presenting, Madelyn and Amy.
It was fun.
Excellent presentation, yes.